Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to a very special edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I'm going to be taking a look at a true supergroup and one of the most celebrated, decorated and popular ensembles in the smooth jazz genre. Each member is a superstar in their own right, and I'm going to be taking a look at their very impressive catalogue, which is a total of 13 studio recordings, and they've had 3 lineup changes in their history. And I'm talking about, of course, the one and only Fourplay. And as I mentioned already, each band member individually is a true superstar in their own right. Pianist, keyboardist Bob James is the seasoned veteran of the band, and he has seen it all, done it all, and played with just about everybody, from Chet Baker to Eric Gale to Earl Klugh to Hubert Laws to Grover Washington to Kirk Whalum to David Sanborn to Patty Austin to Gary Burton, Ron Carter, The Carpenters, Chris Botti, Blood, Sweat and Tears. Bob James has seen it all and done it all and is a true living legend. And guitarist Lee Ritenour has seen it all and done it all and played with just about everybody, from Dave Grusin to Peggy Lee to Carly Simon to Aretha Franklin to Oliver Nelson to Art Garfunkel to Barbra Streisand to Frank Sinatra to Stephen Bishop to John Handy and Quincy Jones. And Nathan East is, of course, a celebrated, decorated musician in his own right, and he has played with Michael Jackson, Peter Gabriel, George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Phil Collins, Stevie Wonder, Toto, Kenny Loggins, Daft Punk, Herbie Hancock, Eric Clapton, Bobby Womack, you name it. Nathan East has seen it all and done it all. And drummer Harvey Mason, he's played with Marlena Shaw, Chet Baker, Ahmed Jamal, Hubert Laws, Joe Henderson, Joe Farrell, Jimmy Webb. The list goes on, and Harvey Mason is one of the most respected drummers of all time. And we've also had guitarist Larry Carlton, who was in the band for a long time. He's seen it all and done it all and played with just about everybody, from Steely Dan to Joni Mitchell to Michael Franks to Michael McDonald to the Crusaders. You name it, he's done it all, and he's had a long solo career as well. And of course, we've also had guitarist Chuck Loeb, who was a member of the band who we sadly lost back in 2017. And he's played with Metro, Steps Ahead, Keiko Matsui, Eric Marienthal, you name it. He's played with just about everybody. Hubert Laws, Stan Getz, the list goes on. And the seeds for this supergroup were first planted back in 1990 when Lee Ritenour, Nathan East and Harvey Mason played on a Bob James solo recording called Grand Piano Canyon, and they were featured on 3 tracks, and those 3 tracks alone helped set the tone for what Fourplay was going to be all about. And the 4 gentlemen got together the following year in 1991 to form a true smooth jazz supergroup called Fourplay. So for today's special edition, I am going to be taking a look at their very impressive catalogue, which is a total of 13 studio recordings. And as always, I am going to be talking about each album individually, and I'll be choosing which one I think is the best one. And before I get started, it's very tough to choose which one is the best one because all of these albums are all fantastic. They're well produced, well written, and there's not a bad album in sight. Obviously, there are some albums that are a little bit better than others, but at the same time, you are not going to find a bad album in this very impressive catalogue. So we're going to start with the first album, which was released in 1991, and this is the self-titled debut album, Fourplay. So, as I mentioned already, Bob James, Lee Ritenour, Harvey Mason and Nathan East comprised of Fourplay, a true supergroup in their own right. And the self-titled debut album of Fourplay was one of the biggest selling albums of all time, and with good reason. Every song on this album is a classic. A lot of the songs have remained in the band's set list to this day, and it gets played over time and time again. And when people talk about Fourplay, they automatically think of the first album, and with good reason. As I mentioned, it's a true classic. So we've got Bob James on piano and keyboards, Lee Ritenour on electric and acoustic guitars, Nathan East on bass and vocals, and Harvey Mason on drums. A true classic and a real smooth jazz masterpiece. So let's have a quick look. Here we go. Oh. Don't we look so young and handsome? It's funny because when Fourplay was formed, Bob James was already much older than these guys, because Harvey Mason is not much older, but when you look at the three of them compared to Bob James, they were like kids. And of course, as we all know, Bob James has had a long-standing career, and Lee Ritenour was on fire at the time of his solo career, and Nathan East and Harvey Mason are two of the most decorated session musicians on the scene. So, as I said, a true supergroup. Look at that. Brilliant. So, standout tracks we have Barley Run, a true classic. 101 Eastbound, another true classic. Foreplay, Moon Jogger, Man Oh Man, After the Dance, which features a guest appearance from singer El Dibaj, Quadrille, Midnight Stroll, October Morning, Wish You Were Here, Rainforest. Every track on this album is a classic. And I would say that the standout tracks for me are Barley Run, 101 Eastbound, Foreplay, Midnight Stroll, Man Oh Man, and October Morning, but no bad song on this album in sight. And all compositions are either written individually by the band members or they're all co-written. As I said, a true supergroup, and it doesn't get any better than the self-titled debut album of Fourplay. Now, originally this was supposed to be a one-off project, but because of the success of the first album, Fourplay reconvened and signed up for another round and released another album, and the next album was released in 1993, and this is Between the Sheets. Another great album by Fourplay and a fantastic follow-up to the self-titled album. And just like the first album, every track on this album is a true classic, and there's no bad tracks in sight. The vocal tracks I could probably live without, but I can forgive them because some of the vocal tracks on here are not actually that bad. So we've got guest appearance from Shaka Khan. I haven't got a problem with Shaka Khan, but as I mentioned, I could do without the vocals, but the vocal track with Shaka Khan is actually not that bad. So we've got tracks like Chant, Monterey, the title track Between the Sheets, Lil Darling, Flying East, Once in the AM, Gulliver, Omoroso, A Summer Child Anthem, and Song for Somalia. Brilliant album and a great follow-up to the first album. So there they are. And some more. It's a very impressive picture. That would actually make a really cool poster. So, standout tracks for me, I would say, are Chant, Between the Sheets, Lil Darling, Flying East, Amoroso, A Summer Child, and Anthem, and Song for Somalia. Great album, and as I mentioned, a fantastic follow-up to the self-titled debut album of Fourplay. Brilliant stuff. So as we move along, we come to the next album, which was released in 1985, and this would mark the final appearance of Lee Ritenour, who pretty much helped lay the foundations down for this band. He would leave shortly after this album to resume his solo career, and this is Elixir. Great follow-up to Between the Sheets and the self-titled debut album, and as I said, lots of standout tracks and a guest appearance from Phil Collins on vocals, who also played with Lee Ritenour many years ago. So we've got the title track, Elixir, Dream Come True, Play Lady, Play, Why Can't It Wait Till Morning with Phil Collins, Magic Carpet Ride, Whisper in My Ear, Fannie Mae, The Closer I Get to You, East to West, Licorice, In My Corner. It's a brilliant album, and as I said, the first three Fourplay albums I would say are absolute classics, and as I mentioned, a true supergroup from four jazz superstars. So let's have a quick look. There we go. Some more sleeve notes, and there's the pictures of the band. There we go. So, standout tracks for me are, I would say, Elixir, Dream Come True, Play Lady Play. As I said, I'm not a great fan of the vocal tracks, but this track with Phil Collins isn't actually that bad. It's actually pretty decent, which is Why Can't It Wait Till Morning, Whisper in My Ear, Fannie Mae, and The Closer I Get to You. But every song on this album is a true classic, and this is a great follow-up to Between the Sheets and the self-titled debut album. And this would actually mark the final appearance of Lee Ritenour, as I mentioned already. So as I said, he would pretty much leave the band for good. He did return recently, I think a few years ago, for a special show in Japan where they had all three guitarists play on stage. And from my understanding, I believe Lee Ritenour has gone back with Fourplay. So I'm really excited to hear about that, and it makes perfect sense. Lee Ritenour helped start Fourplay, and it's only fitting he comes back to finish what he started. But as I said, this would mark the final appearance of Lee Ritenour with Fourplay. So, how do you follow a guy like Lee Ritenour? You find another guitarist. Who could actually fill in Lee Ritenour's shoes, the man that helped start all this? The answer is easy. Enter Larry Carlton. Larry Carlton would join the band as Lee Ritenour's replacement, and in my opinion, all due respect to Lee Ritenour, who helped set up Fourplay, I would say when Larry Carlton joined the band, he gave Fourplay real pulling power and put them on the map as a major group, because I went to see Fourplay back in 2000 with Larry Carlton, and it was their only London appearance as a headlining act, and it was absolutely fantastic. And Larry Carlton is a very different guitar player to Lee Ritenour. Lee Ritenour is more of a smooth jazz sort of style of guitar, but he can rock it out with the best of them. But Larry Carlton, he brings more of a bluesy sort of style of playing, but he can do it all, and he would remain with the band for nearly close to 10 years almost, which is a pretty long time, and he gave Fourplay some of the biggest albums of their career. So he would make his debut on this album, which is called Four, in 1998. So there you have it. Lee Ritenour is gone. Enter Larry Carlton, who I would say put these guys on the map. And just when you think Fourplay couldn't get any bigger, they do, and these guys would go on to bigger and better things with Larry Carlton in the band. So Bob James, Harvey Mason, and Nathan East would remain in the band, and now Larry Carlton is a full-time member of Fourplay. And as I said, great follow-up to the first three Fourplay albums. Very different, but at the same time, the music is what it's all about, and Larry Carlton really adds a little something special to the music. So we've got Silver One, Little Foxes, Sexual Healing, Charmed I'm Sure, Someone to Love, Rio Rush, Piece of My Heart, Slow Slide, Vest Pocket, and Swamp Jazz. Excellent album, and as I said, Larry Carlton just kicks the door down and makes a real impact with Fourplay, and this was one of the biggest albums that they've ever done. So let's have a quick look. So there's the sleeve notes. There you go. There's Larry Carlton's now part of the band. So, standout tracks for me, I would say, are Silver One, Little Foxes, Charmed I'm Sure, Someone to Love, Piece of My Heart, and Swamp Jazz. But an excellent album and a great debut for Larry Carlton in the band. So there you have it, Fourplay 4. So as we move along, we come to the next album, which was released in 1999, and you know, as I mentioned before, you know, I'm not really a great fan of people who do Christmas albums because, you know, it's been all done before. But Fourplay deliver a good Christmas album and put their own little stamp on Christmas compositions. And this is Snowbound. Great Christmas album, lots of great interpretations of classic Christmas songs, and it's a fun album. It's a really good, fun album. And as I mentioned, I went to see Foreplay with Larry Colton, and they actually played a couple of songs from this album, even though it was like I think in the middle of the summertime, but it was still fun. This is a really good, fun album. So we've got Angels We Have Heard on High, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Snowbound, which is the title track, the Christmas song, the Ivy Variations, River, Amazing Grace, Christmas Time Is Here, Santa Claus Is Coming to Town, Away in a Manger, Merry Little Stroll, and Old Lang Syne. Fun Christmas album and lots of great playing from all four members of Fourplay. So have a quick look. There we are. There we go. So, standout tracks, I would say Angels We Have Heard on High, Snowbound, the Christmas song, the Ivy Variations, River, Amazing Grace, and Old Lang Syne. But as I mentioned, it's a good, fun Christmas album and one that I particularly like listening to, especially at Christmas time. So there you have it, Fourplay, Snowbound. Great fun Christmas album and no bad song in sight. Even some of the vocal tracks are quite decent as well. So there you go. So as we move along, we come to the next album, which was released in 2000, which was around the time I saw these guys. And this was quite a big album for the band as well. And this is Yes Please. So still the same lineup, Bob James, Harvey Mason, Nathan East, and Larry Carlton. Great album and got some big songs on here which were fan favourites of smooth jazz radio. So we've got Free Range, Double Trouble, Once Upon a Love, Robo Bop, which is a big hit for this band, Blues Force, Save Some Love For Me, Fortress, Go With Your Heart, Poco, A Poco, A Little Foreplay featuring Cherie, and Lucky. Brilliant album. And as I said, one of our band's biggest ones. So let's have a quick look. There they are. There you go. As I mentioned already, most of the compositions would be mainly composed by the band members individually, but some would be composed by all four members. And as I mentioned, a true band effort from everyone involved. So, standout tracks for me, Free Range, Double Trouble, Once Upon a Love, without a doubt, Robo Bop, and Go With Your Heart, but all great songs from start to finish. And these guys' popularity was just exploding by this point, and a lot of that was due to Larry Carlton because, you know, he's a big name in his own right with a big solo career, so having him in the band didn't hurt at all. In fact, I would say that with Larry Carlton in the band, they just got bigger, and rightly so. So there you have it, Fourplay, Yes Please. So as we move along, we come to the next album, which was released in 2002, and this is called Heartfelt. I wouldn't say this was a weak album. It's not really one I go back to, but there's some good tracks on here, but I wouldn't really say this was weak. This is just another good, strong, solid Fourplay album. So we've got tracks like Elixir, That's the Time, Break It Out, Rollin', Let's Make Love, the title track Heartfelt, Tally Ho, Cafe La Amour, Juju, Going Back Home, Karma, Making Up. Fantastic album. Another good, strong album in the catalogue of Fourplay. So we're going to have a quick look. It's actually a really cool picture. Would actually make a really good poster, I think. There's the geniuses at work. There's some sleeve notes here. As I mentioned already, All compositions are written and composed by the band members individually, or they're all co-composed by all 4 members. Standout tracks for me are Elixir, That's the Time, Let's Make Love, the title track, Heartfelt, Tally Ho, Juju, and Making Up. Great follow-up album once again, and a brilliant album by Fourplay. So there you have it, Fourplay, Heartfelt. Fantastic. So as we move along, we come to the next album, which was released in 2004, and this is Journey. Another great album by Fourplay, another great, fantastic follow-up. Larry Colton still in the band, pretty much the same lineup, which would remain for most of the band's history by this point. So we got Fields of Gold, Play Around, From Day One, the title track Journey, Rosil, Cool Train, Ava La Bop, The Firehouse Chill, Departure, 147 4th Street. Great album, and another follow-up by the masters known as Fourplay. There you go. Nice. And some more sleep notes here. Okay. So the standout tracks for me are Fields of Gold, Play Around It, From Day One, Cool Train, The Firehouse Chill, and 147 4th Street. Brilliant album, and as I said, another great follow-up once again by Fourplay. Good strong album this is. So we would come to the next album, which would be released in 2006, and this is Foreplay X. So this is a very different kind of album to the previous ones, but at the same time, a great addition to the Fourplay catalogue. So we still got Larry Colton in the band, and as I mentioned already, this lineup was pretty much stayed the same for most of the band's history. So we've got Turnabout, Cinnamon Sugar, Eastern Sky, Kid Zero, My Love's Leaving featuring Michael McDonald, Screenplay, Twilight's Touch, Be My Lover, Sunday Morning. Good solid album by Fourplay, and another great follow-up by these guys. So let's have a quick look. Nice. It even features Larry Colton playing electric sitar on one track, which is quite a rare moment because I've never really known Larry Colton to dabble into electric sitar that much. Not saying he can't, but just never really known him to do it. So, standout tracks are Turnabout, Cinnamon Sugar, Eastern Sky, which is very much like a PMG sort of flavour, sort of style of composition. Sounds very much like the Pat Metheny group, and you know they really do a good job with the vocals and the soaring cymbals and the keyboard work and atmospheric sounds that PMG are famous for. And Fourplay do their take on it, and it's a fantastic song. Screenplay, Twilight's Touch, Be My Lover, Sunday Morning. Good strong album, one of Fourplay's most jazziest albums, I would say, and quite heavily orchestrated in some areas, but at the same time, good solid music from 4 masters. So there you have it, Fourplay X. Fantastic. So as we would come to the next album, which was released in 2008, and this would mark Larry Colton's final appearance in Fourplay. He would leave the band shortly after being in the band for well over 10 years. And it's a great way for Larry Colton to go out, and he really leaves his mark on the music. And as I mentioned already, each guitarist that comes or has come into the band are all different, but they all bring something to the table, and they're all very different in their own right. Lee Ritenour is more of a smooth jazz sort of style of guitar player. Larry Colton brought more of a rockier, bluesy sort of feel to the music, and Chuck Loeb, he was more like a straight-ahead jazz guitarist with a bit of rock edge to it. But every guy in the band all done a great job, as a member of Fourplay and gave these guys some fantastic music. So the next album would be released in 2008, and this is Energy. Good album, good solid album, and as I mentioned, the final appearance of Larry Colton. And I was quite shocked because, you know, this lineup pretty much stayed intact for most of the history, for well over a decade. And, you know, Larry Colton's got his own solo career, but would have liked him to have stayed a bit longer. I thought, you know, Fourplay were really hitting their peak with him in the band. So we've got Fortune Teller, The Whistler, Ultralight, Cape Town, The Yes Club, Prelude for Lovers, Look Both Ways, Argentina, Comfort Zone, and Sebastian. Good album. Quite like this one. Doesn't really get talked about that much, but it's good. I quite enjoy this one a lot. Well, these cool cats. There we go. So the standout tracks for me, I would say, are Fortune Teller, The Whistler, Ultralight, love Cape Town, beautiful song that is. Prelude for Lovers, it's a nice take on an old classic song, and Sebastian, good album, great way for Larry Colton to go out with a real bang, and one of Fourplay's most underrated, but at the same time, strongest albums in their catalogue. Fantastic stuff. So there you have it, it's Fourplay, Energy. So as I mentioned, Larry Colton would leave. So the question you ask is, who can follow in the footsteps of Lee Ritenour and Larry Colton? The answer is easy, Chuck Loeb. So this will be his first appearance in the band, and this is Let's Touch the Sky. Chuck Loeb's always been one of my favourite guitarists for many years. I've been to see him live a few times with Fourplay and with his own band. Got to meet him a couple of times and even get a picture of him. Was a super nice guy, one of the best guitar players I've ever seen, and I've got all of his solo albums, and I'll be covering his catalogue of albums in a future edition of this series. And he really added more of a rock edge, probably more than Larry Colton. You know, I never thought that Chuck Loeb was more of a rock guy, because I always remember him as a very laid-back, jazzy sort of player, but he really rocks it up here with Fourplay, and he would remain in the band pretty much right up to his passing, really, and he was fantastic with these guys. And the fact that he was already collaborated with Bob James on some of his solo projects just made it more easier and a real natural choice to join the band and replace Larry Colton. Not an easy task to replace a guy like Larry Colton, but Chuck Loeb really does a good job and really makes the music and the band his own. So the lineup's pretty much stayed intact. Bob James, Nathan East, and Harvey Mason. Larry Colton is gone, and Chuck Loeb is now full-time in the band. So we've got the title track, Let's Touch the Sky, Third Degree, More Than a Dream, Pineapple Getaway, I'll Still Be Loving, You, Gentle Giants for Hank, A Night in Rio, Love TKO, Above and Beyond, Golden Faders, You're My Thrill, which features Anita Baker. Good album. Really good fun album. Chuck Loeb, I would say he brought a lot of rock energy into the music, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just saying that he really rocked it up a lot with Fourplay. So there we go. Yeah, some more sleeve notes here. A really good fun album. Lots of good songs here. Standout tracks to me, Let's Touch the Sky, Third Degree, More Than a Dream, I'll Still Be Loving, A Night in Rio, and Golden Faders and Above and Beyond. A great album, and as I said, Chuck Loeb just steps right in and just picks up where Larry Colton and Lee Ritenour left off. Good fun album, and one that I enjoy listening to quite a lot. So as we come to the next album, which was released in 2012, and this is not one that gets talked about much, but it's still a good fun album anyway, and this is Esprit de Four. So we've got Bob James, Nathan East, and Harvey Mason still in the band, and Chuck Loeb is already full-time in the group as well. So we've got December Dream, Firefly, Venus, Sunny Moon, Put Our Hearts Together instrumental version, All I Want to Do, Logic of Love, Esprit de Fort, Seagull, Put Our Hearts Together. Good stuff here. Really good album here. So let's have a quick look. Bob James. The cat himself, Nathan East. The Clark Kent of smooth jazz himself, Chuck Loeb. And the legendary Harvey Mason. Good stuff. And there they are. So, standout tracks for me, I would say, are December Dream, Firefly, Venus, All I Want to Do, Logic of Love, the title track, Esprit de Fort, and Sunny Moon. Good, strong album this is. And as I said, another one that doesn't really get talked about that much, but still a good, fun album with lots of memorable songs. So we come to the final album to date, which was released in 2015. And this is pretty much like, in a way, celebrating the band's silver anniversary, depending what you look at it. But this is a good album, and sadly this would mark the final appearance of Chuck Loeb, who we sadly lost in 2017, which I was quite shocked about, because I was really looking forward to seeing him doing more solo shows and with Foreplay. So to hear that he had passed away was quite sad, really. But this is a good, fun album, and we see Lee Ritenour and Larry Colton back in the band for guest appearances to celebrate the anniversary of Foreplay. And this is Silver. Good album, good fun album, lots of great songs here, and the guest appearances from Larry Colton and Lee Ritenour are fun too. And they did a special show in Japan where all three guitarists got up on stage and all played together, so that must have been a really fun show, because I remember when I met Chuck Loeb, I asked him, what are your plans after your London tour is finished? And he said, we're going to be doing a brand new Foreplay album, which was this one. And we said we got something very special planned in Japan, but we're not allowed to say what it is yet. But it turned out to be this, which was Lee Ritenour and Larry Colton returning for special guest appearances. And it's a good, fun album. It really is. So we've got Quicksilver, Horace, Sterling, A Silver Lining, Silver Deo, Mine, Silver Streak, Precious Metal, Anna Verasso, and Windmill. A really good album, and a great way to commemorate the anniversary of the band. There they are. Some sleeve notes from Chuck Loeb. So by this point, the band had been together for like 25 years. Insane. It's very rare you have supergroups that last as long as these guys have, especially in jazz, because you always have jazz supergroups would make one album and then they'll just fold up. Sometimes you might be lucky to get 2, but to get 13 and to last for 25 years is just incredible. You don't see that very often in any genre of music, especially in jazz. It's just quite rare, really. So standout tracks for me, we've even got a guest appearance from Kirk Whalum as well. It's an old friend of Bob James's. So standout tracks for me are Silver Darrow with Larry Colton, Windmill with Lee Ritenour, Precious Metal with Kirk Whalum, and Quicksilver and Horace and Sterling. A good, fun album and a great way to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the band. So there you have it. Foreplay, Silver. Great album, and as I mentioned, a great way to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Foreplay. So, after going through all of their albums individually throughout their catalogue, which album do I think is the best? It's not that hard as you think. They're all good, all different, but for me, the best album by far, we're going with the debut album. It's the one that started it all, and as I said, all of their popular songs are on this album, and a lot of the compositions would still get played to this day. And a lot of these songs remained in their set list for the rest of their career and in their history. So the debut album of Fourplay, self-titled, brilliant album, and quite possibly the band's best ever in terms of dynamics and compositions. And sometimes the first album isn't always as good. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But this one is just fantastic. And as I mentioned, a true classic. So from my understanding, Lee Ritenour is back in Fourplay. So hopefully we'll see some gigs whenever that will be in the near future. But really looking forward to that. And it makes perfect sense that Lee Ritenour helped start Fourplay, so it's only fitting he comes back to finish what he started, as I mentioned at the beginning. So there you have it, the entire catalogue of Fourplay, 13 studio albums and 3 lineup changes with 3 guitarists. What more can you ask for? And it's hard to believe that 2021 marks exactly 30 years that Fourplay first came out as a band and released their debut album. It's hard to believe that a supergroup of this caliber of talent have remained together for 30 years. It's just incredible. I would probably say Fourplay are the 3rd longest serving band. The 2nd longest is, of course, the Yellow Jackets. They've been around for like 40 years. And number 1 is Spyro Gyra, who are celebrating, from what I've heard, 47 years. So it's just incredible, all these bands that have lasted for so long. But Fourplay, as I mentioned, are considered to be one of the biggest selling smooth jazz ensembles of all time, and with good reason. It's a good, strong catalogue here. So there you have it. My favourite album, the self-titled debut album of Fourplay. Brilliant stuff. So I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Fourplay album? Is it the self-titled debut album? Is it Elixir, Between the Sheets, 4, Let's Touch the Sky, Esprit du Four? There's no right or wrong answer. We've all got our favourite albums. We've all loved these guys for what they've done. And hopefully we'll see a new album from Fourplay one day before it's all said and done. So you know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And one final thing that I would like to say before I go off is many congratulations to Fourplay on 30 years of being together as a band. Well deserved. You guys absolutely rock, and we look forward to seeing more of you whenever that will be. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.